Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. This is going to be part 2 of this Citroen. Now, I've been at this for a couple of hours and hopefully I think I've kind of got it right. So I'm going to go through with you what I've done, what I think, and we'll just kind of go from there. Now, I'm just going to move this back for the minute. This was the position of the original distributor. It was in that position there. As you can see, I've got Tipex marks everywhere, because this is important. So this was the original markings of the distributor, and as you can see I've got Tipex marks here and one on this side which you can't see. This is for spark plug number 1 and this is for spark plug number 3. They're just marks for me. So if I whip off this, slide that back up. Again, I've got Tipex marks everywhere. Now this Tipex marks here lines up with the middle of here, which means this is cylinder number 1. This is when cylinder number 1 sparks. When you turn the engine and it goes to this mark, it means cylinder number 3 is going to spark. Now, the plan is to hide our new part in behind here. So I'll just move that out of the way. Now, as we can see, I've got more Tipex marks down here. You might not be able to see, but I've marked these little weights inside, because I'm going to have to take the distributor off and I want to make sure I get it back in the same place, because otherwise it's going to cause an absolute nightmare. Now, what we have to do with this little chopper, now I'm hoping this chopper is right. It looks right, to be fair. Once I put it in the middle here, it lines up with all the little contacts inside. So each chopper lines up with the contacts inside, so I'm pretty certain it's right. So what I have to do is I'm going to fit it into here. Now, I'm not 100% sure yet how I'm going to actually seal it to this. I might just put a few washers to kind of keep it pressed in. I'm not 100% sure yet. But anyway, I have marked this. So this goes, this is the only place it can go. This can't turn. So for that to work, I have to turn the distributor to line up with cylinder number 1. And it does line up, but cylinder number 3 is just a bit out. So you can see, hopefully on the top, I've got a thicker mark, and when I turn the distributor to about there, these marks line up. Now that hasn't affected, as you can see, if I put this, that hasn't affected anything here. I would prefer to be able to turn this slightly this way, but unfortunately I can't. So I think that's going to be my best option to go with this particular setup. And what I'm going to have to do next is to take all this off to put this on. Now, again, the tricky part with this, let's take this off. I have to line it. This is going to have to go in and around, let's say there. I'm not 100% sure, so I'll just put this back on. So I'll just put this on, we'll see where this has to go. It's just very fiddly, and it's just going to take a lot of time before I do anything to actually get this on. Now, this is going to have to go roughly about there, I'm guessing. Now, the only way I can do that is I need to drill 2 little holes. But as we can see, the next problem is I can't drill the hole there. So, yeah, that's a bit frustrating now. So I didn't see that because it's the first time I put that on. I can't drill a little hole in the side here because this tab is in the way. Let me just move the camera around, see a bit better now. That's not going to work there. Now, this is where it kind of gets tricky. Now, maybe it's not going to affect anything if I put it down here, or even like that, and potentially use this as number 1. The only reason I say that is because this little gadget is not going to know that this is number 1 here. I'm setting this up to be number 1, so it's not going to know any difference. even though the actual rotary arm is going to be pointed up that way, which is not going to make any difference to me. It's still going to spark at number 1 here. So I might have to do something like that. But even that there now, let me see that one. See, we're getting very close to all these little knobs. So maybe, let me see. Definitely can't do it there. We're not going to be able to do it there. So this is now just turned into more of a nightmare. Now I think we'll get away with it there. I think we will get away with it there. But again, I'm going to have to rip the distributor out just to see before I do this. And because I've got everything marked, it doesn't make a difference. I can just put it back in if it's not going to work out. So, yeah, I'm just going to see now if that will work. I can't see why it won't work, because it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't know. I'm setting this up as number 1, so it doesn't know which one is number 1, 2 or 3. I have to do a bit more thinking on this, and then I'll turn the camera back on and I'll see where we're at, and hopefully we can figure something out. Right, hopefully this is all coming across. We have the distributor here, and I've got it all marked. It's very important, before you take it off, you need to mark the actual body of the distributor, so where the actual main body to where it fits onto the car, which is very important. But not only that, you have to also mark the inside of it, so you know where it goes back. Because, for example, if I take this out, I can spin this, as you can see. Oh, maybe not. I can spin this in any direction and just fit it back. The body of it will line up, but the inside is nowhere near the right angle for it to spark. So it's very important that you actually mark everything before you take it out, mark everything properly. Now what I've done is, and it sounds very simple, all I needed to do was to drill 2 holes in the main body of this distributor here to line up this bracket to hold the special thing, the actual electrode, to make it spark. And that sounds very simple, and it's taken me hours upon hours to figure this out, but hopefully I've done it. So as we can see, I've got a hole here and a hole there. I've had to modify this bracket, so I've had to shave off the legs, make it a bit thinner, because I was having clearance issues with the weights that are inside here. As you can see, this spins around, and I needed this bracket low enough inside the distributor so it would fit and line up with the chopper, so it would all be in the right place. So hopefully I have managed, I think, to have done this. As you can see, I've got two spots in here because I have to slightly move the actual electrode part to the side. Right, the tricky part was getting this bracket lined up properly so the infrared detector would then line up with the chopper, and not only the chopper, it would also line up with the rotary arm spark. So everything had to line up together, which is what's took me such a long time. This chopper will only fit, because if you look at this, it's not completely round. The chopper will only fit on this in one direction. And unfortunately, where it's actually fitting, if I can get it back down now, the place it would actually sit, it was slightly off centre to the rotary arm, which wasn't going to do any good for me. And I only needed it moving to the left about 2 mil. Now what I've had to done is, inside it you've got these little legs. I don't know if the camera's going to show that up. There's little legs that they're like little grippers, because this is designed to fit onto the rotary arm and grip, but obviously we're not doing that. So I had to skim away 3 of the little legs inside and leave 3 there. And what that allows me then to do is to fit this and move it, which you might be able to see, move it the 2 mil to the left, which then lines it up with everything. So once I've put this infrared detector in the right place, that lines up with number 1 cylinder, and also the rotary arm lines up with number 1 cylinder. So yeah, That is taking me hours just to do that because I had clearance problems. So every time, before I drilled the holes, I had to make sure that when this spins around, it doesn't, as you can see now, it's too low so it won't spin around. So I had to make sure it's completely in the right place so this spins around, nothing catches, and it's going to work properly. And not only that, when I put everything in, it's not going to rip itself apart. And then even to drill the other hole, the hole on the opposite side, to make sure I got that in the right place was just an absolute nightmare. But I finally done it. So you can see one hole there and one hole there. What I've got to do now before I go any further is I've got to drill the 2 holes for this plate so the infrared detector can be moved as well. So you can see at the minute the infrared detector is there, but I need the infrared detector about there. So I'm going to drill and tap them 2 holes. The M4 is the size of the bolts. So I'm going to drill and tap these. Get this to fit then. Now here we go. I think I've got it done. Doesn't look much. It's technically only had to drill 4 holes, but them 4 holes to get this lined up and thingy has taken forever. And I'm going to have to glue this chopper down. I think it's going to be the best thing to do. But basically, as we can see, I've got marks on the distributor of the cylinders. So we've got on the firing order 1, 3, 4, 2. So number 1 is lined up with the Tipex mar. That's chopper number 1 gone through. As I twist it around, can't see now, chopper number 2, and as I twist it around to all of them, they all line up with the marks. So I should be fine. Now I might have to adjust the distributor slightly, but we can adjust this distributor once it's in. So I'm not 100% sure because this is the first time I've done anything like this. Normally it's just an easy case of fitting them, but just to get all the clearances right so I allow everything to turn so nothing gets caught, everything's lined up, is taking ages. There was no point in me filming it because it was just to be too boring. I had to put that down, I had to turn it around, I had to make sure it wasn't getting caught, then I had to line up the distributor marks, and it's taken forever. But as we can see now, I've actually got it. So if I take off the rotary arm, you can see, and as that turns, the rotors go through the sensor, cutting the sensor, which will then, from these leads here, then turn that sensor cut into a spark, basically. So that's the way it works. And as you can see, everything is fine and dandy. Yes, but believe me, to get here, absolute nightmare. But we're now here. So what I'm going to do, I'm now going to fit this and start wiring everything up, and hopefully shortly be able to hear noise coming out of this. The next stage is taking out all the old points from the top of the distributor and fitting the 2 together. I've got to hide the wires, still a bit tricky things to come, so I'm going to take out the 2 screws for the actual plate. This will just give us enough room to clear all our new parts in the distributor. That's if they want to come out. This bolt is just turning. The threads must be damaged inside this one. Yeah. So that wasn't even holding on, that second bolt. But lucky enough, we don't need that anymore. So it's not going to cause us a problem. I just need to get this plate out. So that's the actual striker plate. Now we need to get the points out of the way. Little clip here, which hopefully I can pull out. You can just see, again, I don't know if it's coming through, but just a little clip. You just pull out the clip.
I hope you're getting the point.
It's just not funny. It's just not funny. So, yeah, see what I've got to put up with. So I'm going to take out this. Now, what we're actually doing is we can still put everything back. I'm not damaging anything here, so you could still always put it back to the old style, which I don't know why you would ever want to, but the option is there. So we're not actually doing anything to this. So there's the points. You can take off the condenser as well. Get that out of the way. And like I did say, you can keep the condenser there, so if someone looks, it does look like you've still got points, but it's not really going to make any difference. So we're going to take the condenser out. Now we're just left with this plate here, and hopefully I can take this out because I'm going to need to. So, yeah. Need to get that out of the way. It's another little clip. Pull the clip back. Again, hopefully this is coming through on camera. I'm going to struggle to film this. I'm going to try. I'll take the little clip out to drop the pin, which it won't do. Lift that up first then. You lift that up, get that out of the way, which then should allow us to take off the actual plate here, which it does. And we've got the spring left there. We don't need that because that's just going to get in my way, so I'm going to make a little plate here just to blank that, because we don't need the vacuum on this anymore because we're not using the same setup. And hopefully I can knock out this pin, because I think the pin's going to get in our way. So we can knock out the pin. So as you can see, the little pin's come out. It was just on some spline, so I've just literally got a little punched it down. Now I think we can keep this little screw there. So what we've got to do now is we've got to see, once we put this back, if everything we've done will line up. That goes there like that. So now I've got to fit everything inside there to see if everything lines up. I'm going to have to put everything back again. And yeah, so I'm going to put everything back now, back in, and put the cap on, and let's see what happens. Right, so I haven't got everything properly, because what I'm going to do is, they're on but they're not properly secure. I'm going to put Loctite on each of these bolts because there's not many threads holding them on, so I'm going to put Loctite and everything just to secure it. But what I'm doing now is I'm just seeing for clearance. So we know it spins, and we know we are, get it up close to the camera. So as you can see, the choppers are going through, and it should be, from what I can see at the minute, very close to being on actual line. So we might have to adjust the whole thing, but that's to do with timing. Now what we need to do is put this plate on top. So what I'm going to do is, lucky enough, we've got a couple of holes where the we've got a big hole where the vacuum used to be, so we can feed the wires through there. And as we can see, once I got that on, so we need to connect these wires to a box, but that doesn't matter for the minute. So once I've got that on, as you can see, we can still turn it. Everything is fine, so we know we've cleared everything, so we're going to be fine. The rotary arm goes on top here, these wires go into the box, and that is really as simple as that. So this will then go back on like that. We have our wires here which we're going to connect to our new box. I'm going to have to make some sort of plate up here or do something to stop most of the crap getting in. And that's really it. So what basically happens is, once the rotary arm goes on here, I can't obviously spin it now because I'm spinning the engine, but this spins around with the engine. The cap goes on. and that is essentially it. The only thing is, these 3 wires are the only things you're going to really see. Now in the old system there was 2 wires coming out, so you know, but again we can kind of hide these wires in behind the HT lead, so you won't really see them as such. But I'm not sure exactly where we're going to run them yet, because we've got that little control box that we have to run them to. But that is essentially it. So yeah, believe me, it doesn't look like much, but the amount of time it's taken me to line this up, to get the clearance, to get everything, was an absolute nightmare, considering this kit isn't designed for this engine. The only thing that seemed to be designed for it was the actual rotor. Now lucky enough, the rotor lined up with all the marks as it should have done. If the rotor doesn't, then you're in trouble, because it's the rotor here that actually tells it when to spark. So you could even have it offset, it doesn't matter, but you need to make sure when this rotor hits, that's when it's going to spark on the whichever spark plug it happens to go on to. So that's the most important part. And like I said, it's technically only 2 bolts to put that in, but believe me, it is taking me a long time to figure it out. I had to keep dry fitting it, because every time I put it in I was hitting the weight inside the distributor. So I had to move it, I had to grind bits off, I had to get the bolts the right size, and it's just the measurements, because before I was putting it down here it wouldn't clear properly. Then once I got it here I had to move the sensor, because the sensor was in the wrong place. Then we had to move the rotor slightly, so I had to modify the rotor. So once I glue the rotor in, we should be fine then, because if I don't glue the rotor in, if this rotor comes off, it could do an awful lot of damage. So it's important that that rotor is glued on. Technically it should fit onto the bottom of the rotary arm on the normal kits. You shouldn't have to glue it on, but I'm going to have to glue it on this particular case. I can't really see any other way around it. Worst case scenario, if it ever does break, we'll just get a new rotor. It's going to be annoying when it's glued on, but I can't really see any other way around it. And to be fair, as long as nothing moves, this rotor will never really get damaged. So it should really last forever as such. You know, so we shouldn't have a problem there either. I'm just going to have to make something up for this, something up for here, some sort of metal plate to stop most of the crap from going in. And that really is essentially it. I mean, it's not really much more to go now, I don't think. I shouldn't have said that now, because that's mostly going to come back to bite me. But yeah, I think essentially we are very, very close. We do have to make sure that the holes I've made, well not so much the holes I've made, but the holes we've opened up are going to have to be blocked off, because we don't want to get crap in here. Even though if we do, it shouldn't really matter, but we still want to keep that inside there as clean as possible. So once I've got this on, there is going to be a few things we're going to have to sort out just to get it kind of watertight. And then it's just really a case of wiring. Now, the 3 wires coming out of the distributor go into another block connector, which goes into this connector here. Then we just have a few more connections that go into, you know, earths and stuff like that. Very simple. I just need to figure out which is the best place to put this, because I want to kind of hide this. I don't want this to be, you know, seen here. I just want to kind of hide it, and hopefully we should have enough to hide it somewhere down near the coil. I'm hoping I can mount it at the back of the coil or something, but I mean that's not really, that shouldn't be too hard, hopefully, anyway. And it's just a case of getting these wires nice and neat. I might have to bring the wires up to here and tape them inside this one. I'm not sure yet, we'll figure that out later. But that's really essentially it. It's just wiring now. So I'm going to leave the wiring to the final part of this video, and hopefully I've explained what I've done here. It is fairly simple, it just takes a long time to get lined up. If it was the normal kit for this, you'll have this part done in seconds. It's not really a big deal. It's just the wiring then that can take a while. But hopefully now we should be very, very close to hearing this thing fire, and fire properly. fingers crossed. And what we also need to do is we need to open up the spark gap as well to 0.6. I didn't mention that on the other video, because we've got a bigger spark now. We can open up the spark plugs to 0.6, and yeah, so we'll have bigger spark, and everything should run a million times better. But what I have done is I haven't done any damage to anything here, so if someone ever wanted to put back to the original points, you can actually do that. It's important not just to rip everything out, because you know you can always put it back at a later stage if you want to. So I'm going to call it for that video. Next video is going to be wiring, and hopefully maybe hearing it starting. So yeah, so don't forget to look at the shop and all that, and thumbs up the video, and don't forget to get your hands dirty. See you for the next one.